Stanford University.
Thank you very much, Professor Stacey, for that extremely generous introduction, and I'm indeed very honored to have been asked to speak on this occasion. I am also aware that this is meant to be some kind of opening event for the conference on ethnicity in today's Europe, which is opening tomorrow. Of course, the organizers assured me that I don't really have to speak to that topic. And I couldn't, because I cannot even pretend any expertise on that subject. However, what I will talk to you about, which is historical, which will largely deal with the story of an event some 250 years ago, may have some relevance to questions of ethnicity in today's Europe, and may have some bearing on the topics that are concerning us so much these days. So here we go. The mythical history of the British Empire in the East begins in a black hole. In the evolutionary history of stars, the black hole as a theoretical construct, black hole is a theoretical construct. Scientists tell us that most of the properties of the black hole cannot be directly observed. When the core matter of a star cools, contracts, and collapses into a black hole, the space-time around it is so sharply curved that no light escapes, no matter is ejected, and all details of the imploding star are obliterated. An outside observer cannot associate any meaningful sense of time with the interior events. The Black Hole of Calcutta has a somewhat similar status in the history of modern empires. I'm not sure how many of you in this audience have heard of the black hole. 50 years ago, it was known to every school child in Britain. In fact, it was said that if a person in the English-speaking world knew only one thing about India, it was likely to have been the infamous black hole incident. In 1947, a psychologist from Teachers College, Columbia University, asked 115 senior college students in New York City about the incident, and about 1/3 knew something about it. Today, I would be surprised if even 1 out of 100 knows anything about the Black Hole of Calcutta. So, what was it and what happened inside it? Dalhousie Square is the heart of the administrative district of Calcutta. On the western side of the square stands one of the more distinctive buildings of colonial Calcutta, the General Post Office, built in the classical style with Corinthian columns and a Renaissance dome. High up on the eastern wall of the post office, there is a small plaque. It says somewhat obscurely, "The brass lines in the adjacent steps and pavement mark the position and extent of part of the southeast bastion of Old Fort William, the extreme southeast point being 95 feet from this wall." The brass lines are difficult to find, but along one of the lower steps there is a strip of what looks like wrought iron running southwards for a few yards and then coming to an abrupt stop. There is no further clue here to the mystery of the fort wall. Leading south from Dalhousie Square is Council House Street, which runs past the yard of St. John's Church. Built in 1787, it is one of the oldest churches in Calcutta and in a very poor state of repair. The churchyard has some of the oldest funerary architecture from British Calcutta, including the mausoleum of Job Charnock, who founded the first English settlement there. More to our interest, however, is a monument that stands near the western wall of the churchyard, surrounded by overgrown shrubs and piles of rubbish. It is a white marble obelisk on an octagonal base with inscribed tablets on 6 of its sides and a floral frieze on the other 2. The main inscription reads as follows. This monument has been erected by Lord Curzon, Viceroy and Governor-General of India in the year 1902 upon the site and in reproduction of the design of the original monument to the memory of 123 persons who perished in the Black Hole prison of Old Fort William on the night of the 20th of June 1756. The former memorial was raised by their surviving fellow sufferer J.Z. Holwell, Governor of Fort William, on the spot where the bodies of the dead had been thrown into the ditch of the Ravelin. It was removed in 1821. The next tablet has the names of 27 persons who Holwell originally listed as having died in the Black Hole. 2 other tablets list 54 additional victims whose names had been, quote, recovered from oblivion by reference to contemporary documents. The memorial is actually in the wrong place because this is neither the site of the Black Hole prison nor where the bodies of the victims were allegedly thrown. At the base of the monument is another inscription. This monument was erected in 1902 by Lord Curzon on the original site of the Black Hole, northwest corner of Dalhousie Square, and removed thence to the cemetery of St. John's Church, Calcutta in 1940. We are dealing then with 2 monuments. The original monument, by all accounts, stood somewhere at the northwest corner of what was then called the Tank Square. We know from the records that the ruins of the old fort of Calcutta, including the site of the Black Hole prison, were demolished in 1818. The Holwell monument stood outside the walls of the old fort. It is not clear why the original monument was pulled down in 1821, but we do know that it was designed and built probably in 1760 by John Zephaniah Holwell, a survivor of the Black Hole incident, to whom we owe the only detailed narrative of the event. The inscription on the front of the monument then had the names of 48 persons who, it was announced, quote, with sundry other inhabitants, military and militia, to the number of 123 persons, were by the tyrannic violence of Siraj ud-Daulah, Nawab of Bengal, suffocated in the Black Hole prison of Fort William in the night of the 20th day of June 1756 and promiscuously thrown the succeeding morning into the ditch of the Ravelin of this place. This monument is erected by their surviving fellow sufferer J.Z. Holwell. On the reverse of the monument, the inscription said, quote, this horrid act of violence was as amply as deservedly revenged on Siraj ud-Daulah by His Majesty's arms under the conduct of Vice Admiral Watson and Colonel Clive, anno 1757. So what happened in Calcutta on that night? The centre of Calcutta in 1756 was a small fort with earth and ballast bastions and brick walls. This was the fortified settlement of the East India Company in Bengal. The town had grown phenomenally in the first half of the 18th century, and its total population in 1756 could have been in the region of 100,000. The British population probably numbered no more than 400, mostly male, a large part being soldiers. The Indian population lived in the Black Town north of the fort. The company had held from 1698 the 3 villages constituting Calcutta as the zamindar or landlord with the right to settle people and collect revenue. In 1717, the company secured from the Mughal emperor permission to trade without paying customs duties. The Nawab of Bengal allowed the company's goods to be transported without duties, but not those belonging to the company's officials. However, company servants routinely tried to carry out their private trade under the company's seal to evade customs charges. The company's settlement in Calcutta was steadily fortified through the first half of the 18th century, sometimes with the permission of the Nawab's government, but often without. The company's directors in London were always concerned about the need to defend their settlement in Bengal in order to protect their trade. Throughout the early 18th century, they sent repeated instructions to their officials in Bengal, quote, to make your fortifications strong enough to discourage or sustain any attempts of the Moors, but in as private a manner as you can. The private trade of company officials was a matter of much dispute. There is little doubt that for those who chose to sail to India in the company's service, the lure of a fortune acquired in a few years through private trade was the most powerful attraction, because the actual pay was paltry, between 50 to 100 pounds annually. Most who came out from Britain hated the conditions in Bengal. Quote, they disliked the climate, they disliked the sicknesses that recurred so frequently, they disliked the blacks. But they all looked forward to returning home after 10 or 15 years with enough of a fortune to live free and independent like a gentleman. This could mean savings of something like 25,000 pounds, acquired mainly through private trade, that could allow one to live the life of a small squire. In 1750, the British position in Bengal became entangled in the extension of European political rivalries in Asia. The aggressive policies of the French governor Dupleix in Pondicherry had led to major military and diplomatic successes over the British in South India, and now he was looking to Bengal. The British, however, were not slow to pick up the cue. Robert Orme, later the official historiographer of the conquest of Bengal, was advising Robert Clive as early as 1752 to consider toppling Alivardi Khan, Nawab of Bengal. Quote, the Nawab coming down with all his excellency's cannon to Hooghly and with an intent to bully all the settlements out of a large sum of money, Clive, 'twould be a good deed to swing the old dog. I don't speak at random when I say the company must think seriously of it, or it will not be worth their while to trade in Bengal. In April 1756, the 80-year-old Alivardi died. His grandson, Siraj ud-Daulah, succeeded him and immediately demanded that the company